Welcome to the first session of the stability and mobility part of your athletic development. Today we'll be talking through your first component of stability and mobility, what it is and why you should use it, and how we want you to implement it into your session. I'm Shane and this is Annie, our subject. So we'll talk you through the components of each one. Stability and mobility are an important part of athletic development and they coexist within your sport. Each one is important in its own right, but we want to empower you to make the decisions on how much of each one you want in your program. Stability is the amount of control you have of the range, and then mobility is the amount of range you have in a joint. So some of you will need more stability, some of you will need more mobility. Depending on how you are and how you're feeling through these exercises, we want you to do more or less of each one. We're going to start with stability and the exercises around stability that are going to help you in your sport and your range. A lot of the stability exercises are going to be challenged on feet because that's where your sport is played. Your sport is played on feet, and for the most part, we'll challenge it on feet. So the first exercise is a single leg balance reach around a clock face. So stand on one leg, preferably we'd rather you be in barefoot or in socks, not in shoes. The reason being is a lot of the cushion of the foot is taken away from the stability aspect of the foot. So on bare feet or single leg or on single leg stance, so stand on one leg, reach forward to 12 o'clock. Now the important point here is that the hip is forward. It's not a squat where you're sitting into it. You're remaining quite tall as you reach. So you reach into 12, you're making way around the clock, whichever side you're on. So she'll go 11 and come back to center, and then to 10, back to center. We're all going all the way across to 7 on one side and 5 on the other. We're leaving 6 for now in this phase. So as you'll see here, trying to control and rotate with the movement. It's important here that you don't stay fixated and forward. We want the knee to be able to control the motion in and out of the movement. So as she rotates, she is rotating and she's reaching, touching the floor. The other common mistake here is that you put your weight through the foot. So you go all the way through, you put your weight through the foot, and then you come back. It's taking the demand out of that left hip or right hip to control the movement. So as you go around, you're trying to get that control. There's a little bit of a squat pattern going on here. I want to keep this hip extended as you reach. It's important that that happens and it doesn't become a squat. We get to that point after. So reaching all the way through. So we're going to do one clock face, which is done. We'll do a second clock face and move on. Now, like I said at the start, we want you to decide which you need more of. Do you need more stability? Is this a challenge for you? Do you find that in a game that these things are something you need to work on? Then we'd like you to add more of these exercises to your program. Good. So that control of the knee, that knee trying to find the stability is exactly what we're looking for. We need to get away from the idea that the knee doesn't move into valgus and out of valgus. We want to teach it to go there and come out of it. It's very important because our sport will demand us to be there in these ranges, and we have to be controlled in those ranges and be able to come out of those ranges. That's really important that you develop that skill in your technique. So you're going to trial these, and each time you do them, you become slightly better. You have to give the body a chance to recognize what it's trying to achieve, and then you can make the corrections. What we're hoping you do each time is to stay controlled with the movement, keep your hip forward, reach as far as you can, and then come back to center. You don't need to necessarily go as far as you possibly can and lose control and then fall onto that weight. Go as far as you can reach. An analogy here I'd use is imagine you stood on a stone in a river, tip in the river, you're making a ripple in the river, but you're not putting your foot through the water. If that makes sense. Okay. Next exercise. It's a single leg balanced toe touch. Okay, so on one leg, you're reaching down to the floor and then come back up again. It's good range here by Annie. She's got good range, and what she's doing here is hopefully keeping the trail leg, the foot that's not on the floor, close to our center of mass. Don't want it out compensating for the movement. We want it close to our center of mass. She's reaching to the floor and coming all the way back up. Notice that it's nice flexion and a flexion of the ankle, knee, and hip. She's come all the way up, and make sure you fully extend at the top. You always come back up the center. That's very important. You don't stay in a flex position as you do the movement. So come all the way back up and then back down again. We'll go for 5 reps here and then change sides. Now the repetition is all about teaching the nervous system to do the movement. There isn't a prescribed amount of sets and reps on this in this moment, in this component of your athletic development. This is all about challenging the movement, getting good quality reps, and then recognizing when you're going too far and too much and stopping and taking your breather. So 5 reps is a good starting point here. If you feel you can do more, please continue to do more. Okay, so we're back on the right side. We'll do it again. We'll do the right side again 5 times, and then change 5 times. All the way down and reach, that's good. All the way back up, down, and all the way back up. So fully extend the hip on the top. It's very important. There's key characteristics here that are important, that you're reaching, you're stabilizing yourself, but you always start on this center point here. If you're at home and 5 is too much for you and you're doing 2 quality reps, absolutely perfect. Take your time and just make sure you're getting good quality repetition in the movement. Good. And slow it down. Well, the important point here is that you don't use momentum to get you through the movement. Slow and controlled actions will cause the musculature to take control, and you really have to embed that into the program. So quickness and speed and letting gravity do the work is not what we're looking for. Nice controlled motion each time. Okay, good. On to the next one. It's slightly challenging it, but now on different planes of motion. We did a forward reach. Now we're going to do the forward reach, but further. So there's more activation of the glute because you're tilting that pelvis more forward. So there's going to be more length of the glute. So as you squat down, you're reaching forward. You're coming back up. But next time you go down, I want you to go to the right side and then up again, and then go to the left side, which Annie will demonstrate now. So we'll do it twice through. So reaching forward, 10 degrees, more forward on your reach. Come all the way up again to center. Go, yeah, good. All the way back down. Reach to the side. Again, that trail leg, you see the way it went out to the side, is trying to counterbalance itself. But we want to challenge the glutes, the muscles, the hamstrings, and the lower limb in the complex of the calf to control that movement. So keep that leg close to your body and then go again. You'll find that some plane of motion on the front and the left or right is going to be more challenging than another, and that's something to look at. So we'll look at Annie here again when she goes on the inside, quite good control. We go on the outside. If you feel like the hip is bailing out, so too much excessive motion here coming out and driving the hip forward, close the angle. So don't go as far with the reach, go closer to your toe to get less of this bail and more of a sit-down approach into the movement. Yeah, change legs. So again, squatting down like before, touching and reaching in front, good, and then all the way up, and left and right. This is the component of your leg development that needs to be explored. This is all human movement. This is challenging joints, challenging bones, challenging muscles, and you have to let the nervous system develop a pattern to correct itself. Part of this will be looking for good movement and correcting good movement, but a lot of this is teaching the body and letting the body go into motion and coming out of it controlled. As long as you feel you're in control of the motion, the semantics of the movement does not particularly matter too much here. I want us to explore the stability of the movement, and that's the most important thing in this phase. So there are 3 stability exercises for you to try at home. Vary the repetition as you feel fit, but that was the kind of starting point for your exercise. So 5 repetitions on one, and on that one is around the clock face twice, and on the last one we did each one twice. So we're going to go into mobility now. We're going to do 3 exercises of mobility again, and each time, in each week as we go through this component, every time you'll get a new exercise, a new thing to explore. It doesn't mean that these exercises become null or are not warranted in your program. They're very important all the way through, and you find an exercise that is beneficial for you, you should always put it into your program. Okay, so we start with 3 mobility exercises. The first one is anterior hip. Okay, so you get into position on a mat, preferably. Put one foot forward, hands across your chest, and try and stabilize your core and your hip so there isn't an arching. So you stabilize your hip and just lean into that movement as far as you possibly can. The stretch here should be on the hip flexor. You go in, 3-second hold, and then come all the way back out into center. Correct yourself if you feel like you're arching or bending too far forward. You want to maintain a straight line between the shoulder, the hip, and the knee on the floor. Okay, so you're leaning into it, not arching forward or arching back. You want to maintain that position and then just sit into it as far as you possibly can, holding that stretch and then coming out of it. We'll do 5 times, so 3-second hold, and then come back. Good. Yeah, always come back to center, always to that starting position. Good. And then change, yeah. So we do the other side. So often I find a lot of athletes stay in flexion a lot of the time. If you're one of those athletes that stays in flexion and doesn't fully extend, it means you can't engage your glutes as well as you possibly can. So this could be a good exercise for you if you feel like one of those. But again, like we said at the start, you might be an athlete with excessive mobility, and this mobility stuff may not be good for you. We want to empower you to make the right exercise choice as you progress through your program. Yeah, 5 repetitions. Now, do another round if you feel at the end of this you want to do more, but we want to give you a selection of exercises to choose from. The next one is your hamstring mobility exercises. So a lot of you may have tight hamstrings. So straight out in front of you, toe can be up. For now, we'll talk about the variety of tweaking exercises, about foot positions and everything else to get different engagement. But for now, it's toe up. The first one, you're going to reach forward as far as you possibly can, and then come back up the center. So when you reach forward, try and reach to your toe level. So it's not to the floor, it's more to your toe level. So do that one again, Annie. So reach to your toe level. Good. And then come back up the center, and then you're going to go left or right as you reach. Left or right. So you're going left first, and then come up, and then try the other side. We're going to do 3 rounds of that. While Annie's going through, I'll explain why we're doing 3 reaches. You've got 3 hamstrings. It's not just one. The hamstrings are made up of 3 different muscle groups, or muscles, sorry. And each one has a different insertion. So each hand reach biases the stretch on the hamstring, depending on if it's more medial, so inside or outside of the hamstring. And each one will tackle each hamstring slightly differently. So give you a better range and a better stretch of each hamstring. Good. And find the range here whereby you're not compensating. If you feel like you're starting to bend the knee a little bit, you may be reaching too far. Try and keep the leg straight, that's important, and then find your range within the movement. So we go on to the other side. Same again, reaching forward. That's good. And again, this is how you feel. Do you feel like this exercise is targeting where it should target? And if it isn't, make slight adjustments between the foot coming up or down, or how far you're reaching with the movement. Good. Excellent. Now, the last one we're going to do is the adductor stretch, okay? So another problematic area for footballers and hurlers is our grinds, right? So sometimes our grinds don't allow us to get into the movements we want to do because they become tight and short. So this is an exercise to lengthen up the adductors. So get into a position where you put the leg out in front. The important point here is that the ankle is rotating in, so it locks in the tibia or the ankle complex. Is very important that it locks in. I'll explain why in a second. So you're in a position here, hands across your chest. Important point here is that you're fully flexed, fully extended. You're not flexed from the hip. If you start flexing forward, it's going to take the demand off the adductors, what we don't want. So you're in this position. You're going to rotate away from me, Annie. Rotate away from me. Correct? And then back in again. What it's doing here is stretching the adductor in 3 planes of motion. So it's stretching it from the proximal end and the distal end, so the closest to you and furthest away from you, and also on 3 planes of motion, because you're like twisting it like a towel as you do this. So it's locking at one end and you're twisting at the other end, so stretching the hamstring in 3 planes of motion, the adductors in 3 planes of motion. Good. If you're finding this in the lower back, just shorten the lever length, okay? And then maybe not go as much. Changing hand positions will change the structure and the feel of the adductor. So make sure you're feeling it where you should feel it as you progress through this exercise. Okay. So do the other side, same thing again, lock in that foot. Make sure that hip is fully extended before you start. The hip needs to be fully extended, otherwise you're taking the load off the adductors. So you're reaching towards me, that's good. Yeah, we go for 5 repetitions on here. And just make sure you do feel it in those adductors when you do the stretch. Okay, 2 more. That's good, keeping the hip forward and fully extended, being very tall and upright as you rotate. Perfect. Okay. So there's 6 exercises. 3 stability, 3 mobility for you to try at home. And really the emphasis at the start of the session was about trying to discover and empower yourself where you are along the continuum of stability and mobility. Because some may be more appropriate for others, it's about you discovering which is best for you. So have a play with each of the exercises, see which feels the best, and it might be a mixture of both, or it might be all that you need in your program. But really the onus is on you to empower yourself to discover what's best for you moving forward as a player. Now we're going to start on the strength and power element of your athletic development program. The first exercise we're going to talk about today is the goblet squat or bodyweight squat, depending on whether you've got weight at home or whether you're competent in the movement. So the first exercise is the bodyweight squat. We'll do this without weight. Use a box or something behind you to stabilize yourself if you feel like you need that security. So if Annie just squats, what we're looking for is that the feet are wider than hip width apart, chest is upright. You can brace at the start of the movement by taking a breath in, controlling the movement all the way down, and then driving out of it. So very competent in this squat here, so we can move forward without the stability or the security of a box. Squat is low, same position again. So if the movement looks like this, there's good quality range, there's good stability, I would add some weight to this. So if any of you want to grab a weight, so this now becomes a goblet squat. The weight is held close to the center of mass, so close to the chest. Squatting down again. What we're looking for here is differences in quality of range. If you start doing a more shallow range, stick to the body weight. But her range is very good here, and she's free as well. And if you feel like you're this one, and next a regression while keeping the weight, and if you step back after you've done your rep, sit back and use the box as well. So use the box with and without weight, whatever feels most comfortable for you. So we're going to do 10 reps. So that's our first rep. Second rep, looking forward all the time when you do this. Chest is always tall. Keep the weight close to the center of mass, close to your chest. So that will keep the weight moving up and down and not add any unnecessary load. So 4 more repetitions. Trying to get the hip about closest to the height of the knee, so the thigh is parallel to the floor if you can. But again, this is the phase where we're just working on range of movement. So we're going to take about 1 minute rest before we progress again. So Annie's quite competent on the goblet squat, so we're going to do 2 more sets of that. So you're doing 3 sets of 10 on a goblet squat or bodyweight squat. So around 60 seconds. If you feel that you are not getting enough range or you feel like something's limiting you, can step a little bit forward, or just take the weight off the movement and try and get into that squat position. If you feel like you're really struggling with it, just sit down to the box. You'll have to adjust yourself a little bit. So if you feel like you're stuck in this range, just try and let yourself fall onto the box, and from here get strength in this range and then drive yourself up on your heels. So you can really tweak this exercise to suit your own needs. So we'll do the next set. So again, Annie's quite competent in this movement. So she's going to hold the weight again close and do her 10 repetitions. That's good. 3 reps. 4. Chest is nice and tall. 5, halfway there. Again, hold the breath and then brace yourself. That's just going to brace everything around the trunk to help you stabilize yourself, to get yourself down and up in a comfortable position. Good. And relax. 60 seconds rest again between the exercises. It's important here that you find the balance between the weight, the range, but the important thing here is that we don't lose range or we don't lose stability and mobility in these exercises, because too often than not we put too much weight on ourselves. This restricts our movement, so we're only getting to here, and that over time is not what we're looking for. So the main thing here is that we get good range and strength in good range. So manipulate the environment by using a bench or by using free weights or weight itself to try and get good range. So when I say good range, I'm talking about the hip trying to get to a parallel and then coming up again. You don't need to go too far. If you find yourself going too far and you're getting down into this position where the butt winks, the pelvis starts coming underneath, then you're going too far. So try and just get to that parallel position. If you're not getting there, just work on that over the weeks as the weeks progress. Okay. So again, last time we're doing the goblet squat or body weight, whichever one at home you feel best with. Good range, pushing through the heels of the foot as well. Which is another coaching point. As you get to the bottom, push through the heels, come all the way up strong. all the way up, fully extend the hips. So the slight flexion here, just make sure you fully extend at the top of the movement. It's very important. So very confident in this movement. It's exactly what we're looking for. So again, just control it on the way down, then drive up fast through the heels of the feet. Okay, good. So while you're getting your break, we're just going to talk you through the next two. We're going to superset the next two exercises, which means we're going to do one after the other. So that was one on its own. These two are your lunge series. Okay, so the first one is an anterior lunge or forward lunge. So if you get in a position, so make sure in this position, you're going to stand with your feet hip width apart, lunge forward. Your knee goes towards the floor, not touching it, just grazing the floor, and then comes back, and then you alternate the movement. So, and you can demonstrate here. So one step forward and back, alternate. So left side forward, just on the starting position. And if you just want to keep your feet a bit wide, so there is that basis support as you go. So too narrow, it's going to be too narrow of a support. Always come back to that start position. That's good. That's two. Two on each side. Three. Three on each side. Again, there's high repetition here, so we're going to do 10, so you continue any. That's good technique. Hands here can be anywhere you want to stabilize yourself. Eventually, we'll load this up when we feel confident in it, but we want to get good at body weight exercise. This is quite a challenging exercise for a lot of people, so take your time with it. Don't rush the movement. Again, each time set yourself, and he's doing it competently and sort of quickly, but if you need to slow this down, please slow this down if you need to, okay? So just take a step forward, back knee towards the floor as you get into that lunge. Again, driving back with the with the heel of the foot. Okay, so you're pushing down the heel of the foot. That engages the muscles that we want to get you out of the movement. It's very good exercise for your sport. You want to be able to get into these positions and get out of them again. So teaching this in your strength and power program is a good part of your development on the pitch. The next exercise is the lateral lunge. So we were doing forward and back. Now we're going to go left and right if you like. So take a step left or right. Again, hands can be anywhere to stabilize yourself. Stepping right and stepping left. The important point here is, you see on the right side, Annie's good foot position pointed forward. She needs now to do the same on the left side. So that's better on that side. So the both feet, when they land, they're pointed forward. So there's no external rotation of the left or right foot. The other consideration here is keeping your trunk upright. So you don't want to bow too far forward. You want to maintain a good posture. So you should be able to see whatever's on the crest or the satanta or the logo on the front of your chest needs to be seen. So too far forward where you can't see it inside the picture is you're leaning too far forward. So keeping your chest upright. The other thing is on the trail leg. So when she steps to the left, that right leg remains straight. I don't want it to be bent. So that's why we're getting back like the stability exercise. We want the adductors to be a big part of this movement. So we want to condition our adductors, our medial muscles to train in this pattern. So if you bend the leg, if I'll just do it on the side here, if I squat to my left and I keep the knee bent on this side, even though I'm going onto this and keep the bent, it's not going to engage the adductors that we want to engage. So we want the adductors to be able to allow the movement to stretch and then contract to bring you back to center. That's what we're looking for. So strengthening up the adductors is a big part of this exercise. So you got to allow yourself to go into it. For now, we don't really want you to add load to this. The load enough is on the movement. So we go back to the first exercise again, so the anterior lunge. So you go forward again. So again, maintain that good. So before you start, so feet just about hip width apart. Yeah, so and then step out. So when you step out, you're in a nice base of support to stabilize yourself for and then to get into good range. If it becomes too much of a stability demand, so you're too close, it's too narrow, it doesn't allow you to get into ranges that we want you to get into. So we want that knee to get nice and close to the floor, controlled, and then come out of it again. It's very important. Very good, Annie. It's good looking forward as well, keeping the chest up, dropping that back knee to the floor, and then push off the heel of the front foot. Excellent. Good. Now, if this is the first time doing these exercises, we set 10 reps on each exercise. So you might want to lower it down a little bit if you're finding it tough. Go 8 repetitions. or 6 if you feel that's appropriate for you. And then we go into our lateral lunge. So quite challenging, this lunge. So stepping to our left, stepping to our right. On the next time we go through this, I'll show you a quick tweak that we can make to make it a little bit easier for you if you're finding it difficult to get into those ranges. But Annie's perfect here, so feet are forward again, like we said. This leg is not bent, it's straight legged, and she's getting a nice range and she's keeping her posture upright when she lunges. Good. That's good. Also, if you find like you're stepping forward on this motion, just check yourself and make sure when you're stepping completely to the side. So if our feet are here, I want to step to the side and not out in front or behind myself. I want to laterally step completely on this plane of motion, cross ourselves. That's good. Excellent. Okay, so take a breather, take a breath. Quite challenging, the musculature of that one. It's a very challenging exercise. So we're just going to make some modifications now to make sure that if you're struggling with these exercises, that you have an alternative. Okay, so on the first one with the alternative lunge, we're going to step into what we call a split squat. And what we're doing now is taking the momentum out of the movement. So we're not stepping in anymore and then having to control that range. We're already in that good range, and we're dropping the back knee to the floor and then coming up again. So we're staying on one side, we're doing 10 repetitions, and then on the other side, we're doing the same thing. I'll explain as well. For the lateral lunge, so we're going to go stepping here, sitting onto the left side, and then coming out of it. So we're into this position. So rather than stepping in and the momentum of all that, to control all that momentum and getting into it, can be quite challenging. So this time, I just want you to sit into it, lunge into that movement, try and get that nice straight leg bend, feet forward, chest is upright as you squat into the movement. Okay, so let's try the alternative now. If you're fine on the first two, continue, but here's an alternative if you are struggling. So getting into that motion, dropping that back knee to the floor, and then coming all the way up. Good. Important point here is that her leg is fully extending. She's getting all the way to the floor. The back knee is going close to the floor, but not touching it. So she's always in tension. She's always working the muscles that we want to work. She's coming out of it. It's good. So 10 repetitions on this side and 10 repetitions on the other side. Excellent. Always looking forward. And then other side. Again, 10 repetitions can be quite difficult if you've never done this before. So adjust it. Might go 8, might go 6. It's all about not being perfect. It's all about progression. So make sure you challenge yourself with the reps, but don't overdo it. Find your range that you feel that you're working, but it doesn't have to be a max effort. This doesn't have to be the hardest session you've ever done. It's the first session of the program. Okay, good. And we try the same principle now with the lateral aspect of the movement. So again, we're taking momentum out of the movement. We're taking that ground reaction force out of the movement. So there's a lot of less demand on the body. So it might allow you to get into the motion easier. If you are still struggling with this motion, you can add an elevation of the right foot here. So you can add a block underneath so the range becomes easier to get into. So that foot is just slightly elevated, the one that you're working on. There's another alternative if you feel like you're struggling with this motion. But it should be a lot easier than stepping in because momentum is taken out of it and the ground reaction force and everything that the body has to overcome when you just do a static lunge like this. So last set on this one. It's good, keeping your chest upright. Keep pushing. I know it's difficult and maybe slight burn at this point, but just keep pushing through the exercise. Take your time with it. Take a breather if you need to. Very good. Okay, excellent. So that's 3 sets of that done. We're going into a glute complex now, so we're actually lying on the floor for this one. So take your time at home, have a drink, just relax. So before we start, we're just going to talk you through. So again, we're supersetting these 2 exercises. The first one is going to be relatively static. You're just going to move your hips up and down, and the other one is going to get you to walk out. So the first one is called a glute bridge. I want you to set up like Annie is here. So our palms are in contact with the floor to give you that more stability. So you don't need to put them across your chest. Some people do, but for this one, I want you to keep them on the floor. So make sure your feet are just go slightly wider, yeah, and toes are pointed forward on this one. Okay, so she'll just lift your hips up as high as you can go before you start arching your spine. So it's a nice straight line here between knee, hip, and shoulder, and that's what I want. And then come all the way down. Good. Let's do 10 repetitions of this. Good. All the way down. The more control you start gathering of the hip, we start adding some complexity to this motion. But for now, just try and get into a good position. Bring your hips all the way up to the point where you're not arching your back, into a comfortable position, and then all the way down to the floor. It's important that we go back to the floor on each motion. So we want the muscles to activate and switch off also. So when you go down to the floor, they switch off. And then obviously as you lift them, they switch on again. So that switching on and switching off of muscular here is very important. The next exercise is a glute walk, right? So a similar position. So you bridge up and you're going to walk out with the heels of your feet, all right? So now walk out as far as you can. We're just extending the leverage of the hamstrings. So wherever you feel most comfortable, this time we're doing 5 repetitions of the exercise. So that's good. That's 1. Walk out as far as you can. You notice the control here of Annie as she gets to the position. And she's not going beyond her range where she doesn't have control. She's staying in a good length, a good range, but staying in control of the movement and keeping competency. What you don't want here is the hip to rotate left and right. A lot of the wobble here of the hip. Make sure the posture of the hip is straight so there isn't a rocking of the hip left and right. So she's maintaining a good posture here as she gets all the way out. And you start feeling your hamstrings on this exercise. Very good. Excellent. Good. And take a breather. Okay, so that was a superset of the glute complex. So we again go back to a bridge. We'll give ourselves 30 seconds again. So make sure you get your breather back. Make sure the muscles recover a little bit. But the important point here is that you get into a good starting position. That's by far the most important part here. So everything else about the pelvis rotating and everything, we're going to add the complexity as we go along. But the most important thing is you get into a good position. A good position is from the hands in contact, and also where the feet are positioned. And from here, you should be in a good position to get the good movement out of it. So all the way up without the spine rotating. Good. So again, 10 repetitions of this. Take your time with it. We want you to go all the way down to the floor, switch off all the muscles, and then switch them back on again to come all the way up. So that switching on and off is important here for this exercise. Do your 10 repetitions. Take your time with the motion. It doesn't have to be rushed. Take your time, controlled all the way up and controlled certainly all the way down. Excellent. Very good. Okay, and then you go on to superset, then onto the glute walks when you've done your 10 repetitions. So you bridge up, walk out as far as you can, wherever's comfortable or wherever you can push yourself. If you find it easy, just go that little bit longer. But if you're comfortable and you feel the hamstrings working, the glute working, then you're probably in the right range. So again, 5 repetitions here. Excellent. That's good. Keeping the hips up nice and high as you do it. Good. And find that range. Good. So you notice no wobble of the hips, no rotation of the hips. The hips are solid and strong and stable as she's getting the motion. If you find like you're wobbling too much, then maybe lower the range, take smaller steps. And then once you feel the exercise is losing its integrity, then you need to stop. So this phase is all about movement and competency of movement. Teaching muscles to switch on and switch off is a very important component here. So we'll do the bridge once more. We don't need too long rest here. So into a bridge again, 10 repetitions. Again, coming all the way up. Very good. That's good. Just again, the common errors here are arching the spine. So coming up into the motion too far, extending the spine too much. We don't really want that. We just want the muscles around the glute to work as best we can. Good. If you feel like you need more glute or you're not getting enough glute, make sure you push the weight through the heels again, a bit like the lunges that we did. So push through the heels of the feet as you come up to the 10 reps. Very good. And then we go into our walks. Again, walking as far as we can with good control. And then back. Very good. And then walk. Good. Nice controlled short steps, not one big step. Short steps, again, activating the hamstring slightly differently as we walk. Has to absorb that ground contact, and it's got to engage to stabilize yourself. So very important exercises here as we progress on our hamstring stability and hamstring mobility and also hamstring strength. Excellent. Good. And relax. Okay, so tough exercise for the hamstring, tough exercise for the glutes. That's 3 repetitions. So relax, get yourself a drink. We have a last component to do. We've gone through already, just while you're getting drinks, we've gone through a double leg exercise. We've gone through an anterior complex, which is a split stance or single leg almost variation. And then we just did our glute complex, our posterior chain. So all the hamstring work that we need to work on. And that's going to be the format of our strength and power. Double leg, lunge complex, glute and hamstring posterior chain, and now we're going on to our plyometrics, and now we're into our power work. Okay, so the first exercise is a pogo hop. Okay, so the important point here is that we're teaching, and what we're overloading is the first part of your acceleration, your sprint technique. So that drops, that push off, that first movement of any good acceleration is this exercise is very good for. So we're going to ask you to keep your hands across your chest. That is taking out the tendency for people to use their hands to generate force. So everything here is going to be predominantly driven by the hips, ankle, knee, the hips, knee, and ankle. So feet roughly hip width apart, toes pointed forward, hands across your chest, and you're just going to jump up into a pogo hop. But the important point here is that the balls of the feet are the contact, and you keep your toes up as you hit the floor. So 10 repetitions. Good. 10 repetitions, toes up, toes up, toes up, toes up, toes up. Very good. And getting as high as you can on each repetition. Very, very difficult to do, to coordinate your body into that movement, but it's very important that you try, and the intent is always there to keep your toes up as they hit the floor. What common error here is that the foot is plantar flex, and as you hit the floor, you're not in a good position then to drive force into the floor. So toes up on that motion all the time. Again, we're going to superset this with a single leg hop. So you're going to hop, same foot, same leg, onto the same side. So it's left onto left, right onto right. So hopping left onto left and stick. And then back. Do the same side again. Onto one leg and then stabilize onto that leg. Good. Challenge yourself on each one of these repetitions. Again, sorry, these are 5 repetitions on your left, 5 repetitions on your right. Stabilize yourself each time. Challenge yourself on both the height and the length of the jump. Good, so that was a longer jump. So this is exactly what we're trying to do, but stability is the most important thing here. When you land, I want you to stick that landing for 2-3 seconds. That's the important point here. Okay, stabilize yourself on one leg, catch yourself. Good. If you feel comfortable, if your little hop is literally 2-3 centimeters, that's okay for this one. This is self-regulated, self-paced for you and your own body and your own capability, but progress the exercise as you feel comfortable. So stabilize yourself, sit, land, and then come up. That's good. You sort of want a softish landing here. You don't want too heavy of a foot contact when you land, and then you want to stabilize yourself. So nice and soft is what we're looking for here. So one leg, hopping onto one leg, same side. Good, and then relax. What these 2 exercises are doing is one is producing a lot of force and one is trying to stabilize that force. So one is a power-driven exercise and one is a force. So one is a force production and one is a force reduction exercise. So try and reduce the force or accept the force, if you like. So producing it and accepting it is an important component. And if you break down any acceleration or deceleration drills, you're going to have an emphasis on each of those as you progress through, and I'll explain that as we go through. So some of your acceleration or force production, your deceleration is reducing that force that you produce. So these 2 exercises are both ends of the spectrums slightly. So we go on to pogo hops again. Again, the coaching points here, hands across your chest, toes up when you land. Again, you'll get used to this exercise as you do it more often, but as long as you recognize what's needed here. So toes up. And the land, height, 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 push to the floor, good, toes up, toes up, toes up, toes up, toes up. Very, very good. That's much better, that set, Excellent. Now what will happen though naturally is the knees do bend. It's very difficult to keep the knees locked in. The knees bend just because of the mass and momentum of your body coming down into the floor. So that's okay as long as it's not going into this squat position. So a little bit of a bend of the knees is acceptable. But the most important thing is the toe is upright, is up. So into that position as you hit the floor. Okay, so into the single leg hop again. Hop and stick. Stabilize yourself. Yeah, walk back. Same again. Jumping forward. Stabilize yourself. Good. Good again. Now challenge yourself on the jump if you feel like you can. So that was a bigger jump, a larger jump. So again, what's all going to happen here is you just have more force to absorb. The further you jump, the higher you jump, there's going to be more force coming through the floor, more force to absorb. So the better we get at it, the more likely then it is to transfer in when we get on the pitch or we get moving. So very good exercise to start getting into your program now. As eventually we're going to return to our sports, we've got to be able to absorb these forces but also produce these forces. That's why these exercises are good for you. Good. Stabilize yourself. Good. Nice soft landing on each one, as you can see. This time we are utilizing our hands on this one, but on the force production, obviously, we're taking hands away to rely more on the lower limb. On this one, we are generating force, but remember the focus here is on absorbing the forces. So we don't mind where the forces are coming from right now. Our important point here is that we absorb force as well. So 5 repetitions. So take a breather again. So again, just go over the coaching points. So hands across your chest, toes up as you hit the floor. There will be a slight bend in the knees, but that's okay. But each time the toes up, I can't emphasize that enough. Now, power, so while you're just getting your breather back, so it's important to get a bit of a rest in between here because we're trying to produce force. We need a bit of a rest. So an important point here is that force production is all about how much force we produce and how quickly we produce a force. But the other element is the timing of the jump, okay? So the timing of the power is as important as how much we produce and how fast we produce it. So it's like when you strike a ball, there's a sweet spot to hitting a ball that makes it go further. It's not always the amount of force or how quickly the force is produced, but that timing of the motion is an important concept to get across here. So as you're hitting the floor, try and find a sweet spot, and each movement and each jump becomes a little bit easier on the body also. Okay. Toes up, good, good. Excellent, height, good. Toes up, toes up, toes up. Excellent, good, good Annie, good. Well done. So it's a tough exercise to do. It looks quite simple and straightforward, but when you do it, it's quite a lot to manage, a lot of force, and there's a lot of demand on the body to keep that foot straight. But you're teaching the body to, when it hits the floor, that it's ready to absorb force and push force through the floor. Okay, back on the last exercise again. Good, good stability. Good, walk back, and then go again. Jumping forward. Good. Now this is designed if you don't have a lot of space. Obviously everyone has a small bit of room in their house. If you feel like you've got a longer corridor or somewhere to do it, feel free to do these in series of jumps. It doesn't have to be necessarily on the spot. You can do these one after the other if you like. But the most important thing is that you stabilize. So don't get caught up into 5 series of jumps. The stability and the stickiness of this exercise is what we're looking for here. So each time you do a jump, you're stabilizing yourself, taking your time before doing the next one. Good. Good stick. That's good. Notice that when Annie lands, she's looking forward. She's getting feedback from her body, from her limbs, her proprioceptum of her limbs, not looking down, getting feedback visually. So make sure you're looking forward. When you land, it's your body is picking up, the receptors are picking up the motion, and they're stabilizing themselves as opposed to looking at the motion. So keep your head looking forward. That's good. Good. So that's it from the strength and power element. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you see the relevance to your sport. Each week has become progressively more difficult as you progress, but take your time, get the movement right, and hope you enjoy. Okay, as part of your strength and power program, you'll notice that a lot of the exercises in the program are a lower limb focus, and there's a reason and a rationale for that, both from an injury point of view and a performance point of view for your sport. But we recognize that some people want to train upper body and some core, so we've added in each week and each phase, we'll add in different exercises we'd like you to go through. So stuff for home, I've put together 4 upper body exercises and 4 core exercises for you to do. First one is a press up. So normal press up, which you've done before, obviously try and get into a nice good position, shoulders over the arms, trying to get as low as you can, all the way to the floor and press up. Important point here is that you get good range. If you're not good at them, the reps and sets don't really matter too much on this phase. Just get yourself into good movement position. If you are more advanced and you want to challenge yourself on a press up, my recommendation is that you change your hand positions, right? So in our sport, we want to be strong in different ranges and different positions. We don't know where we're going to utilize our shoulder or our hand complex. So on this one, you have your normal press up, but now you might try right forward and then come all the way down. Try left forward, come all the way down. You also want to try and look on the frontal plane, go wide or go narrow and down. And then also on the transverse plane, get into neutral position, internally rotate one hand down. You can internally rotate the other or externally rotate and down. Now all that's going to do is change the position of the shoulder and the chest and going to demand slightly different recruitment of muscles, and that will benefit you on your sport. But start with a press up, that's the first exercise. Second exercise is a single arm shoulder press. So if you do have weight, you have the luxury of some weight at home, get into a nice position and just press over your head. Try and go over your ear, over your head, so you're not out in front, you're not too far back. So keep yourself forward and press over your head. So all the way up. You can see there I did a little dip to drive up if you want to, or if you're comfortable, just driving, pressing over your head. Second exercise. Now the third exercise is a bent over row. There's many ways of doing this. You see a lot of people into this position, hand over chest, or hand under your shoulder, and then driving up to the belly button. There is that one. There is also into this position and driving up into the belly button. Or if you don't have something, you can always stabilize yourself with your hand, with your feet, wide base support, and drive up in the same pattern. So there's a bent over row. And the last one I want to do is a chest press. So obviously you won't have a bench, or if you do have a bench at home, feel free. If not, and you just have some weight, get yourself into a nice position on the floor. Feet, keeping your spine on the floor and just pressing over your head. So nice control down, pressing, up, control the movement, down, and pressing up. So there are 4 exercises for your upper body that you can use. Each week we'll progress it, or each phase we'll progress it, just to give you some different variety of the upper body. But remember, the main focus is that we train what we're going to use the most often, and we train it from an injury point of view and a performance point of view. In addition to your upper body program, you have some core exercises that we'd like you to try also. These are 4 different core exercises. We'll progress these each week, each phase. You have a bit of variety in your program. So the first one is a plank. You'll have all done this, or if you haven't, just make sure you get into a nice good position in the plank. So make sure your shoulders, hips, and feet are in a straight line and holding that position. Now you can lean forward. If you want to complex it, you can rotate. Some people like to rotate, but it must be all in control of the movement. So that's one. Side plank is the second. So get into a nice position, get your feet together, and then just drive up from your hip. Again, that nice straight line is important when you get into that movement. Again, you can add complexity with your hands, with some rotation, if you feel like you need to, but just make sure you're in that nice controlled position. The next one is a nice variation of the plank. So you're here, you can walk up onto your palms, walk out as far as you possibly can into a nice good controlled position. And then the same thing on the way back and down. And the last exercise is a Russian twist. You can do it with weight or without weight. Without weight can actually be very beneficial and very stimulating if you don't have it. So my recommendation is to rotate as far over your left or right shoulder as possible, and you'll feel that. If you have some weight, what tends to happen is the range becomes less. So it's important that the range is there. So try it without weight, and if you have some weight, you can add in the range. But important point on any exercise is that you have length and you have tension. So too short a range is not going to benefit you. You need length and you need tension.
We're now going to take it onto a cool down stretch just to finish off the workout. Okay, so for the cool down stretch, you're going to hold each stretch for about 30 to 45 seconds. And you're going to flow through a routine here from standing position down onto the floor and then back up onto the feet. Okay, so Henry, we're going to just start off with a stretch for the posterior chain, so along the calves, hamstrings, glutes, into your back, and we're going to stretch through the chest as well. So I'm going to get you to take your hands behind your back, interlock your fingers, and then you're going to pull your arms back to stretch through your chest. From that position, feet pointing forward, just about shoulder width apart, you're going to hinge forward at the hips and try bring your arms up as high as you can to the ceiling. So you're pulling your hands up to the ceiling and trying to keep your legs nice and straight on this. Good, so we're going to hold here for 30 seconds on each stretch, really pulling those arms up. And really exaggerate that pull of the chest. And as you hold this movement, try exaggerate that pull, pulling back through the shoulders, pulling the hands towards the ceiling. Good, so just holding for another 5 seconds, really exaggerating that stretch and just using a nice slow controlled breathing pattern here, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Okay, keeping that position, Henry, bring your hands down onto the mat. Good, you're gonna walk forward. You're going to drop onto one knee, and you're going to bring the opposite foot forward, and we're going to take a hip flexor stretch here. Good, so you're going to lean forward, and what you're looking for here is a nice stretch on the front of the hip. If you're not feeling that stretch, you can just walk your front foot forward a little bit more. If you're too far back, you're not going to get that stretch. So your knee here in front doesn't want to come over the toes. You're going to walk it forward and hold that stretch. Again, holding each stretch for about 30 seconds. If you can hold it for a little bit longer, you can go up to 45 seconds. Okay, let's keep that position, and we're going to take it now to the hamstring on the opposite side. So you're going to sit back, you're going to allow the toes come up towards you, and you're going to reach forward towards the foot. Okay, so as you're performing this stretch, you want to reach your hands towards the foot, but don't force the stretch and don't force any of these stretches. So just stretching to the point of tension and never pain on these movements. So you're just reaching towards that foot. If you can't reach the foot or the ankle, don't worry about it. Don't force the movement. So again, holding for about 30 seconds here, just helping these muscles to stretch out and kickstart that recovery. Good. Okay, Henry, you're going to switch legs. Opposite leg forward, you're going to push forward for that hip flexor stretch. If you're not feeling that, again, walk that front foot forward a little bit more. And just gently sitting forward. And let your torso come forward with you. You don't want to pull back on this movement. So just keep that spine neutral and hinge forward. Just trying to find that stretch on the front of that back leg. Again, using your breath, deep breaths into the nose, out through the mouth, remembering that that breath can help mobilize the joints and muscles. And sitting back for your hamstring stretch on this side. Again, reaching towards the foot, but not forcing the movement. If you can't reach the foot or ankle, just reach down along the leg as far as you can. If you find that the muscle is releasing out and you can reach it a little bit further, take it that little bit further. And on each exhale, imagine that muscle relaxing. And relax. Perfect. Okay, let's face this direction for the next one, Henry. We're going to take it now to the inner thigh. Take your hands down in front. You're going to bring your left leg out to the side. Toes pointing forward. And you're going to press back, and you should feel this stretch along the inside of the left leg. If you're struggling to find that stretch, you're just going to walk the supporting knee out a little bit wider and gently press back into it. You can rotate through the torso and sink down into it if you want to find a little bit of a deeper stretch. Feeling that, Henry? Again, about 30 to 45 seconds, and you can switch legs. Good, okay, straight leg on the stretching leg. Sit back into it, try find that stretch along the inside of the leg. Again, if you're struggling to find that stretch, you can walk the supporting knee out a little bit more, or you can rotate your torso towards the supporting knee. Again, using your breath, relax the muscles on the exhale. Good. Okay, Henry, I'll get you to bring your hands to the front of the mat again. From here, you're going to lift onto your toes. Nice straight leg position. Walk back to a standing position. Trying to keep the legs as straight as possible. And we're just going to finish off. You can stay facing that direction, Henry. We're going to finish off with a quad stretch. So you're going to keep your supporting leg nice and soft on this. I want you to reach back, grab a hold of your foot behind, and pull your heel towards your back side. Now, as you're doing this, the supporting knee staying soft to stabilize. And pulling your heel nice and close to the back side. If your knee is out here in front, you're not going to feel that stretch. So pull it back in line with the opposite leg or back beyond it if you can. Also trying not to let that knee flare out to the side. So keep it centered, keep it pulled back, and hold that stretch on the quad. Again, 30 to 45 seconds, and switch it over. Soft supporting leg. Keep that balance. If you are struggling to balance here, you can just hold on to something and get that stretch. So again, knee centered, pull it back. Try not to let it come out in front. Try not to let it come out to the side. Pull it back, stay centered, and feel that stretch on the front here on the quad. Again, using your breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And relax. Good. Okay, and that's it for our session today. Thank you very much for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you in the next session.